First question.
Excuse me. Henry, I wanted to know if you were not a finance person and a banker, looking back, is there another career that you think that kind of would have been fun?
Well, can we stop?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can cut it out. Just keep it.
Yeah, just ask it again. I'm not sure I related the two parts.
If you didn't do what you did professionally, is there something else you would have done?
No, I think in terms of my life's career, I took what was in front of me and made it as good as I could and added to it wherever I might be. And I think I was successful in that.
Were you good at math more than other stuff as a kid, or why was that interesting to you?
Bookkeeping, my mother and daddy were doing bookkeeping after he quit doing construction work, and I helped them. And while I was in college, in fact, I would help them some. And that led me in that direction, I guess. It's all part of business. And CPA, earning the CPA put me in a position to do most anything I wanted to do in any kind of business. So.
Oh, wow.
And did you start your MBA immediately after Georgia Tech, or there's a space in between?
The story is that I was at Georgia Tech, and in that era, the Fulton County draft board would draft you out of college to go into the Army. And the various weekend warrior programs anticipated that and offered a way out. If you join, in my case, the Navy, you commit to 3 years active duty, but they'd let you finish your degree and get your degree before you started your activity. And then they promised me that I would only serve at NAS Atlanta on the Dobbins Air Force Base at NAS Atlanta, which was a weekend warrior training program because the week was Saturday through Wednesday.
Right.
Okay.
So you did that immediately upon graduating
Yes,
Georgia Tech?
I went
so
from
went straight into that.
a short time, just weeks, but I graduated in September, and I've forgotten what month I actually went on duty, but probably right after that. And they figured out what to do with me finally, because they weren't used to having a Georgia Tech graduate in a white hat.
Right.
So.
So you did the master's at Georgia State.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
While you were doing the Navy.
In the Navy, during the Navy.
Okay.
And the Navy paid for it.
Yeah.
So they paid for education if you wanted to go. There were two parts of it. One, they paid for it, and secondly, they let me leave when I was on duty to go to class if I had a class. And they made it all work. It worked easy, and I didn't have to swap off to anything different to do that. It was just part of what the Navy was offering. And so earning that master's degree and paid for before I ever finished my Navy time just gave me a little edge up in terms of competitors for jobs.
Now, did you live in Navy housing, or where'd you live?
I lived at home. They didn't care where I lived. I did not have to live on the base, and the base did not have housing for but maybe 3 officers, because the base wasn't very big. It was just on one side of the Dobbins runway.
So you lived in Alpharetta?
I lived at home in Roswell.
In Roswell.
Yeah, I was living in Roswell by then, and put my uniform on at home, go to the base, come back. It was like a job.
Now, home meaning with your mom and dad, or home different place?
With Ann. I was married.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
I was married in 1961. I graduated from school, from college,
Uh-huh.
1962, something like that. And then they added 3 years of Navy on top of that.
So you were married before you
Oh,
finished
my
Georgia
goodness.
Tech?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know
Yes.
that.
That is
Yeah.
incredible. Tell me, I want to hear about how
I,
you met
uh,
too. Sorry.
I don't know, we just decided that we could make that work. Mom was working out at the Army base at Fort McPherson. They had a hospital, Army hospital out there at that time. So she was working there, and had a guy from Alpharetta was also working there, 2 of them, and they would pick me up at the college and pick Ann up at Fort McPherson to go home, or the reverse. They'd go in the morning, they'd drop me off at Georgia Tech, and in the afternoon pick me up.
So mom graduated before you because you did the co-op stuff?
Yes.
So she was already finished?
Yeah, she had her degree, yeah.
Yeah.
What was her degree in?
Medical technology,
Oh wow.
medical technologist, I guess it was
Oh,
called.
okay.
Lab work for hospitals.
Oh wow.
And she did 3 years at Brunel University in conventional college. And then to get the medical technology degree, her last year was done at Grady Hospital.
She was in the newspaper. There was some like news story about her. I got it somewhere.
Oh my gosh. I would have
So-
just squeezed her. Oh my goodness.
I only vaguely remember. How did you guys meet?
I knew of Mom during high school because she was president of senior class, I think,
Yeah.
for sure, and other things. And she was just active as in the Roswell group at Roswell High School. And in terms of actually meeting and talking to her, I went to a beauty contest or something like that at Roswell High School, and she was there with 2 other girls.
Aw.
And she knew me by face, I guess, but we hadn't really talked, and
No,
that's
I have
really.
a vague memory. Were you on a date with somebody else at that time when you?
No,
For some
no.
reason, that's.
I went by myself, probably
Oh, okay.
probably looking for girls to talk to.
Got it. Okay.
There wasn't anything going on in Alpharetta.
I'm misremembering that then.
Yeah.
That is funny. So, what kind of car were you driving when you graduated college,
When I graduated college, let
or
me
when
see.
y'all were married first?
My first car I bought for $90 from a guy down in Pensacola
Is that
that I
MacArthur?
was working with,
Oh
and
my
that was
goodness.
MacArthur, the 4-door DeSoto.
Uh-huh.
And then I thought something was wrong with it. It had a fluid drive, and I thought something was wrong with it, so I sold it to a guy in Alpharetta for $50.
Uh-huh.
And he put a quart of oil in the transmission, and it ran fine. And then I was
Lessons
telling that information to my granddaddy Jones, my mother's daddy, and he said, "Yeah, you had to do that with those cars," but I'd already sold it by then.
Oh gosh.
He knew about it.
So then, what were you driving? What was y'all's first car when you got married?
Well, Ann's mom gave her a foreign car. I won't remember the name of it, but Mom didn't like it.
Mhm.
So as soon as she could, she traded for a Dodge
She
sedan.
didn't like how it looked, or she didn't like how it drove, or she just. Do you remember?
She just didn't like it.
Just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Huh.
And she got this Dodge passenger 4-door passenger car, and that was her car.
Yeah.
And somewhere along in there, I bought a Volkswagen Bug
Oh,
really?
early on.
Yeah.
And I know after I got, well, even in the Navy, I had to have something to drive. And I had the Volkswagen Bug when I was in the Navy, so I bought it when I got out of college.
What color was your Bug? Do you remember?
Blue.
Mm,
Blue.
like a bright blue or like a light blue? What shade of blue would you say that you were?
What shape?
What shade,
shade
of
of blue?
blue?
Was it like bright blue or dark blue or
Sky blue,
sky?
Oh,
medium light blue. Not dark blue, it was a light blue.
Yeah.
what do you remember the music that you enjoyed listening to around the time that you and Ann met? or even just what did you
I'd have
like
to go
listen
back to high school, and WCON in Decatur played Uncle Ed's country music, and used to listen to that and like that. But that's all the way back to high school.
Oh,
And I didn't do much music or anything else through college. When I was on my working quarter in Pensacola, we didn't do anything. It cost money because all of us were working to get enough money to go back and pay the next quarter at Georgia Tech. And there were 4 of us.
And what did you do on that? That was a co-op?
When I applied to Georgia Tech, I applied to the co-op program. So it was on a quarter basis, and the college was on a quarter basis back then. And my first quarter was September, October, November, and early part of December. And so that was my first quarter, and my second quarter was a wintertime spent in Pensacola. And I was barely 18. I was 17 when I went to Georgia Tech, and got on a Greyhound bus and rode the bus to Pensacola. And the guy that we were boarding with was looking for me on that bus. Told him when we was coming, and he came in his car and picked me up at the bus station, and took me to the boarding house. And one of the boys had a car, and I knew that. So there were 3 of us first, and all 3 of us rode in his car.
So,
his dad was had a car automotive repair shop.
Oh, wow.
So,
what kind of work did y'all do?
we all worked for Chemstrand Nylon, 5,000 employees, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it produced nothing but nylon yarn, not a string of nylon, string of nylon. That's all it produced, and we were there as work. Most of the quarters we were there working in the lab and doing lab work, because our degrees that got us there was chemical engineering.
Henry, I think that you're incredibly smart. I just want to say it. Because you could do anything, seriously.
Well, Kenneth and Kevin and Stephen can too. It must have been in the blood or something, because there's nothing that they wouldn't try. And I didn't call on people to repair or do anything. We did it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we still do it ourselves.
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
we do, and it's wonderful. It's
Yeah.
just
Sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of curiosity, but yeah.
Yep.
So when you were a little kid, do you remember thinking you wanted to do any particular thing when you grew up, or
Only in the sense of Georgia Tech. Tom was 10 years older than me, and he was in Georgia Tech then, and graduated from Georgia Tech. So that's all I wanted
so
to
you
do.
had an idea of Georgia Tech for
Yeah.
a long time? Yeah. Okay.
And two, it had the co-op program, and other colleges didn't, because Tech was on a quarter system, and that made it easy to have a quarter of school and a quarter of work. And so the combination of, that's where Tom went, and the co-op program, which is the way I could pay my way through Georgia Tech, and I did. So
That's amazing.
That's incredible.
the first quarter was paid for. In Milton High School was a rural school with a strong agricultural department, and in the agricultural department they sponsored the FFA, and there would be Georgia something would produce competitions, hog judging contests, or just different things that had to do with the agriculture. And one year I won an award by growing 200 bushels an acre and an acre of corn, and that was a measurement that the Department of whatever the farm department was in Georgia at that point. They came out and pulled the corn
That's
and
crazy.
saw how many bushels it would take when they pulled an acre.
Now, again, I might be not remembering this right because I don't remember the other thing right. But did you judge chickens? We were practicing to go to an FFA convention in Kansas City, and agriculture teacher was going to take 4 of us, and we had practiced judging, and we'd judged some hogs, and then they learned that
there were no opening for a hog judging team at the national convention, and the teacher, who was agricultural teacher at Bilton High School, badly wanted to go to the convention, so he convinced them to enable us to go as a chicken judging team, not knowing anything about chickens particularly, and but go as a chicken judging team. And of course, we were happy to go because we wanted to go too.
So you did go?
Yeah. And we went and we judged chickens, but it was the weirdest thing. One chicken we had to judge had no feathers, none. And then there were just other things in the process of chicken judging that was kind of strange.
Yeah.
And there were 4 of us. All of us were judging as individuals and something like that. And I came home with a bronze medal. The other guys didn't come home with anything. So
Good job.
You're the greatest
Bronze
chicken judge I've ever met.
Right, that's right.
That's hilarious.
But it was we rode the train from Atlanta to Kansas City, and the train car we were in, I don't know how many seats in the train car, maybe 60, and we were in a train car with all boys. And what I remember most is that we just made ourselves at home. The guys maybe didn't have but one shirt anyway. They'd take their shirt off and hang it up, and to go through the car, and you had to do that. The women and men had to go through that to the dining car and to others. They'd just shake their head and walk through the car where all these guys, country bumpkins, were out there being comfortable.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness.
That was a long ride. I remember that. We never changed cars. They changed the car to the train in Evansville, Indiana, I believe, so that the car could go on to Kansas City.
So before you graduated high school, and when you were a kid, what kind of chores or work did your dad make you do?
When my dad bought a 64-acre farm when I was 1, and that's what we moved to Alpharetta for, and he was that was 1937. So he ran the farm 1937, 1938. Had two horses that came with the farm, draft horses, and then 41. In 41, the Second World War started. So in order to get certain coupons and benefits and things that they did in wartime that let you buy certain things, my dad worked at a plant on the south side of downtown Atlanta building railroad cars. So in 41 through 45, he built railroad cars for the Army.
Did he stay down there, or did he drive back and
drove
forth?
back and forth. And that meant he had to have coupons to buy gas to go that far. It was all.
Do you remember what kind of car he had?
Yeah, it was a Chevrolet. It had to be out of the 30s.
Yeah.
It was just a 4-door Chevrolet, and he had other people ride with him, and they didn't think anything about driving from Alpharetta to the south side of downtown Atlanta because there was no traffic.
Yeah.
Roads weren't so good, but there was no traffic.
Right at the same time it does now. So did he serve in the military?
Yes, he did. Matter of fact, he probably went in when he was 16. Probably told a lie and went in. He was on a farm. His mother and daddy and 3 brothers and 2 sisters and him were all on a farm. So pickings were kind of slim back then. So he decided to join the Navy, and he finished high school or came close, and joined the Navy when he was underage, I'm sure. And,
So
and
he'd
was
already been.
that was in the First World War.
Okay.
Oh goodness.
Did he serve overseas in the first?
He was on a ship, yeah. And then the war ended in 1919, so he wasn't in very long. And from that, he was 19 years old because he was born in 1900. And then he and my mom met. They married in 1924. And then he got into sales. He was a exceptional seller of labels. And you can't see them now, but Tom's peanut envelope for a nickel bag of peanuts had a big T on it. My dad designed that, and they adopted it for all of their products.
Wow. Wow.
Oh my
He was
goodness.
selling.
So he was an artist as well?
Well, yeah, creative.
Did everything.
Creative, yeah. And and then he worked in that, traveled a lot, was very successful in that. And then along came the Depression, and I won't know exactly the years, but certainly it's almost all of the 1930s until the latter end of it. And that was a world that we don't know about now.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. Very
Do
few
you
people
know
have
what
experienced it.
he did for money or to survive during that time period?
In the Depression? Well, we lived on a farm, so we had a huge garden,
Sure.
and we'd grow things, and grew a lot of the food,
Yeah.
and you could grow sweet potatoes, and then you made a mound of. You put them in straw and then covered them all with dirt and made a mound so you could keep your potatoes edible by storing them in an outside mound.
Oh, wow.
So
did that.
in the basement in the Shopper Road house, we always had the chinchilla cages. What's the story with that?
Somewhere along the way, Tom, my older brother, got excited about the possibility of raising chinchillas because they were rare fur animals, rare fur animals.
They're so
Yeah.
super soft.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
And Tom got my dad interested in it, and we had an extra building that had been a hen house, and converted that to a chinchilla house. And my dad went up in Pennsylvania and bought some chinchillas and to raise chinchillas with, and but he would never sell them. So he was not interested in selling them. But you had to raise them and sell them. That's what it was for.
So he didn't really do it very long, or as a business, or
Not as a business. He didn't. He and my brother probably had a big disagreement with that. I never knew about it because the idea was to raise the chinchillas and sell them for the fur, and we had several cages of chinchillas. We had a lot.
what did he do with them?
I don't know. I can't remember now how we got down to almost none. But he died in 1965, and still had chinchillas then. And my mother tended to them for a while, but couldn't sell them because in the process of keeping them in the pens for too long, it stained the fur. So they were not saleable. And but she still had some when my daddy died in 1965.
So did they end up being more pets than anything else, or just?
No, they weren't. They didn't make good pets.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever trying to. They were just active, fur-bearing rats, I guess. I don't know what they were. Chinchillas. is
Some
what
big
they
Yeah,
were.
yeah.
ears too, right? Oh my goodness.
And I have some memory of, did he dredge sand, or just some? Was that?
Well, after the Second World War, after he quit building railroad cars, he went into construction, and construction in North Fulton then meant underpinning a lot of houses, doing mostly residential work, and occasionally a commercial building or something, but residential work. And so he did a lot of different things in terms of construction, and one of the things that he did was put a sand pump operation into the creek that ran across our property. And you pumped sand out of the creek and ran it through, had to send it up about 20 feet high and then run it across a trough that had changing grid size, and you had different size cans of sand and 1, 2, 3,
So it drops through.
as it got onto the end. And you just, all it did was just pump the sand out and run it down that trough, and then if the sand didn't fall through, it just went out the end and pond up. But he ran that for a long time, and that was back when if anybody wanted a truckload of sand, they loaded it themselves. We didn't have backhoes or anything back then.
So what did he make you do as far as chores
Me?
or whatever around the farm?
After this period where he stopped doing the working for the Second World War, he was bound and determined not to go into farming.
Mm.
So we had a big chicken house built, and we didn't do any chickens in it. He built, jumping around on you, but he built a chicken house for chickens, raising chickens, broiler chickens. And then he didn't do that, and that's where he built concrete blocks and manufactured concrete blocks.
Oh, wow.
So we had sand out of the creek, and then he made these blocks. And they're probably a number of them still in use in North Fulton, but he made thousands and thousands of concrete blocks by hand. He had a crew, but they made them by hand.
Wow.
And in little devices, it was the size of a block. You'd put the mud, the concrete, in the device and rock it enough to get all the holes out of it and the air out of it. And then you had a device that just shaved the top off. And then you turn that upside down on a wood pallet, and somebody would take the wood pallet and put it over on a rack to cure. And it would stay together. It wouldn't come apart because you made them stiff. And so that was the process. And that went on for really a long time. And you ask, what did I do in all that time period? He also, since he wasn't going to row crop the land, he put it in pastures. And therefore we got into fattening beef cattle. And we'd buy beef cattle down at the stockyard in Atlanta, and there was a stockyard then in Atlanta. And by the biggest group, I think we had 36 at one time. They were just all eating the grass and getting fat with the intention to go back and sell them in the fall and go through the same cycle.
That's cool.
So I was the cowboy.
That's awesome.
Dun, da, da. Did you have a cowboy hat? That
Did I have a cowboy hat?
my very important question.
No, one thing I had was probably blue jean overalls with straps over your shoulders
Definitely.
and a straw hat, probably.
Oh my goodness.
But I did that, and I didn't do much. I wasn't big enough or strong enough to do much in the construction, like in making blocks and that sort of thing. I did work the sand pumps, ran those because that was just keeping up. Engine going to a big pump that would pump sand and water out of the creek and then run it up and then go down the chute.
Would that have been high school or before high school?
in high
Elementary?
school,
High
yeah.
school, yeah.
When did you begin square dancing?
Square dancing, 1999.
Really?
Ann decided that we needed to do something, and she learned of this square dance club down at Peachtree Presbyterian. And so she got me, and then she got Ann and Cy Mallard, and then Jim and whatever her name is, he was doctor, a doctor in Roswell, the only one, and recruited him, and we all went down to try out for class, and Cy and Ann stayed a little while. The doctor, he quit in a hurry. He did not last any time. He said he couldn't do that. And then Cy and Ann dropped off for probably the same reason. And then so Ann and I just stuck and started in 1999 and danced continuously.
That's so fun. Oh my goodness. Now, were you a dancer in high school, like with school?
I was a
High
cowboy.
school dances?
That's all I did. I didn't play football, didn't play basketball. I went home and worked.
Yes, sir.
What did y'all do, you and George and Corky specifically, for fun?
We walked. Back then you could walk across anybody's property, so we'd make long walks around the property, and we enjoyed that. I mean, you getting out and going through other people's property and going through the woods and in our own woods and just active outdoors.
So who got in the most trouble of all your brothers, you or your brothers?
We all got whippings by my mother.
By your mother?
By my mother. My daddy never gave me a whipping. My mother would give me pull off something out of the shrubbery and give me a whipping. And George and Ronald, same thing. She was a disciplined person.
would y'all be like fighting with each other, or just doing something she didn't want you to do?
Doing something we weren't supposed to, mostly. No, we didn't. I don't remember. I was the big brother, so I probably don't remember it exactly. But I don't remember us fighting. We did a lot together.
Yeah.
And in almost everything we did, if it were in the garden or whatever we were doing, all three of us were doing it. Dad bought a tractor about 1948, and I never saw him drive it.
Was that the one we had on our property at Shallowford? The Ford?
Yeah.
Okay.
My sister Janine and her husband had it.
Yeah.
And let it rust and ruin. Yeah. But that's the tractor.
Yeah, I've ridden on that many times.
But,
when you and your brothers were younger, how would you give each other a hard time regularly? Like, do you remember just messing with each other just
Corky
for fun?
was a teaser, so he was the agitator, but we didn't do much of that. I mean, we had too much to do otherwise.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And you weren't trapped in a house, and there was no radio, no TV, nothing. So you everything you did was outside.
Now, I remember, and again, I feel like I keep misremembering things, but did Corky hide under the porch and scare everybody because they couldn't find him?
The house was not underpinned. Our farmhouse was not underpinned, so you could crawl under it.
Yeah.
And it was L-shaped, and the part of the L that faced the road was pretty long, and because it had a bedroom string on one side of the L at the kitchen and everything, and then across the front was a bedroom, a big hallway, and then another bedroom. And that bedroom had a chimney, so he had crawled up some near that chimney where it wasn't much room, and we called for him and called for him. As Corky, we called for him and we hunted for him and hunted for him, and finally I saw him way back up under the house, and I don't know what he was up there particularly for, but he was hiding, and then he knew he was in trouble, so he wouldn't answer. So that was Corky. George was a drugstore cowboy. There was a guy that sold fertilizer, and close to where we lived, across the road, but across the road might mean he was 3 blocks away. And he used to go, that guy selling insurance and fertilizer, used to go to downtown Alpharetta right before school started, every morning. So George would catch a ride with him to downtown, and there was a pinball machines and things like that. Some of the guys would come in and play before they went to high school. And then it was just a short half-block walk to the high school. But George was a drugstore cowboy in that time period. Corky never did that, and I never did it.
Yeah.
And we had a lucky location. The bus would come, let's say, north on Bethany Road, turn left on Providence Road, make a big loop up through the county, picking up students, and then come back to Bethany, down to that intersection, and turn left on Providence to go to Alpharetta. So we had 2 times we could catch the bus.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What was your address? Do you remember the address?
Bethany Road, I don't remember the number, if
Yeah,
we had a number. I guess we did. Seems like 210 Bethany Road, but I'm not sure. Because you didn't, the mailman knew everybody, and there weren't that many people. I mean, if something addressed to Cantrell Cowart, well, Cantrell Cowart lives over there, and the mailman would know it. So.
And then how much older was Janine than you?
8 years.
8?
Yeah.
And Tom was 10?
Yep. So Janine, when she finished high school, she went to work for Bell Telephone Company, and it's the place in downtown Atlanta that you went to get a job because you could. She lived in a boarding house, and Tom lived in a boarding house a long time after he graduated from Tech.
Very cool.
Very different world back then. I was 17 when I graduated from high school.
Now, did you graduate early, or did you start
No.
early? How did you end up graduating at 17?
Okay. Back then, you could start the first grade in the calendar year. So my birthday was in November, so I could go if it was October, November, December, your birthday. Well, you could be in that year. So I was almost the youngest one in my class all the way through. There was one guy who was born in December. He was younger. But now you got to be. It changed around anyway. I would have been a year later if I'd been going under the rules now. But I went through under that rule, which means you could start first grade before you were one, or before you were 5 or 6 or whatever the requirement was. So I went all the way through school being, for my class, next to the youngest one.
So, and your graduating class from Milton was how many people?
64, I believe,
64.
which was a good sized group.
Now, did most of those people, did you know since first grade?
No, because Milton High School was where I went, and Milton Elementary School was where I went in the same building. That's just geographically, that's where we were assigned. But there was a school in Crabapple, primary grade school in Crabapple, primary grade school in north of Alpharetta, and there was one east of Alpharetta, and there may have been another one.
And they all fit in?
They fed in.
Okay.
Yeah, they fed
So
in.
what grade did those people come in? Like
8th grade.
8th grade.
Yeah, they'd come in the 8th grade. They'd go through 7th grades in these remote schools.
Yeah, so 1st through 7th was with the same kids.
Yeah.
And 8th grade, all the other kids came.
Other kids came in, and yeah. Interesting time. A lot going. Relatively speaking, it's all. A lot of it was agricultural oriented, like the FFA. There was an FHA, Future Homemakers of America, and the girls participated in that. And there was a lot of other activities. We got in my 8th grade, we got a new principal in who was a builder of the school. He led the creation of a football team and basketball team and just the things that weren't being done in school then. I mean, kids played it, but not.
But you didn't have an official
not
team.
in leagues. Yeah. And he built all of that, the cancer, and he was there a long time.
That's very cool. We'll go right.